Dwayne Ebanks.
But I do have some questions.
There are more questions than answers.
Radio Command's Talk Today.
If you're ready to talk, we're willing to listen.
Well, I really enjoy this program today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
May God bless every person.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome. Thank you so much for joining us here in this edition of Talk Today. 949-8037, 1-800-534-8255. And the studio will have a chance to chat with Mr. Dwayne Ebanks for a bit to give us a preview of the CI Retro coming up on Friday. And then at 12:30, the Honorable Finance Minister will be our guest, and we'll talk about our CPI and have a look at our economy. So please stay tuned for Talk Today.
Radio Cayman's Talk Today, the Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program. We ask our listeners to avoid statements or comments which are abusive, derogatory, malicious, or defamatory. Do not use any indecent language or make any statement which is false or misleading. Email Talk Today at candw.ky or call 1-800-534-8255.
Courtesy of Flow.
Cayman's #1 network that connects you to your world like never before.
Let your voice be heard. Once again, here's your host, Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome. Thank you so much for joining us here in this edition of Talk Today. Honored to be able again to have a chance not only to speak with, but to be in the good company of Mr. Dwayne Ebanks. On Friday, sir, the Talk Today CI Retro continues.
Yes, that program will sort of focus in on our vast Cayman Islands maritime. You know, our maritime it's a vast expanse. It encompasses so many things, and if you think about it, the maritime is what has underpinned just about all that we see here today on the terrain. It underpinned the making of the foundation that was laid, and it's still, very, very much a part of you could say, the economy when you really look at it.
As we look at the whole issue of the maritime industry, and we think back to the fact that we have a registry here now with its foundations, 100 years plus.
Plus, yes.
And that's
doing great work.
And doing great work, and that is the official. Then we look at how people understand travel and transport, but the country itself is physical, geographical location, the way our people moved, from the canoes and the like. Through the evolution of the catboat and adoption of it to our great schooners. On the way in, I was having a quick chat with some students, and the fact that we may call some of the names of these great schooners, but how many of us, including myself, really know a lot about them or can readily recall the facts, when they were built, the tonnage, what the value would be, what it did, what it meant. Other things are named after it, but is it just a mere sort of attempt to, monetize something today without truly respecting and reflecting its importance,
Well, I think it's all what you said there and probably a bit more.
I was being careful.
But I think the core of it, that it seems that over the years we have not place the level of sensitivity to our heritage, our culture, that should have been placed or should be placed at this time right now. We need to really know where we came from in order to know where we're going and be able to plot a safe course, a good course forward.
Mm-hmm. There was an exhibition years ago, a partnership between the gallery and the National Archive, and to see the photos in particular, to reflect that here is someone, and it may come back to me the name of it. I do apologize, I don't recall it readily. This person, gentleman comes, gets on the schooner, the catboat, goes with the turtlers. You remember the exhibit. He's capturing it through the lens, and for whatever reason, whatever the his sort of intent was. But fast forward, all these decades, to see those pictures and to look at some of those people and say, "Oh, that's grandfather, that's uncle, that's." So, not only do we recognize the faces, but there's so much more telling of what the life was like and how important.
Yeah, well, I think that was the Saturday Evening Post expedition that came down here. Actually, I think what attracted them down here was the big sailing regatta that was happening. But when they came here, just to more or less look at what the process of sailing regattas was, they got enthralled by all these other aspects, the turtlers, the turtling trade, the shark trade, and of course the building of these beautiful schooners. So that's how that all got coagulated, I guess you could say, back in those days.
Yeah, and the British expedition, probably in the 30s thereabouts.
Yes, yeah.
All ties in, and I want to share that because one, there is that maritime connection, not just to get here at that time, but two, it speaks to how important our history is and how perhaps unaware so many of us are, and still the effort that was needed.
Well, not only so many of us, and I guess you're probably referring to the turtle meat and cornbread Caymanians.
As you put it, yes, sir.
but look at the people who have come across our shores and are here amongst us, who know nothing about it. And I think that the process of enlightening them about what it's all about, will play in significantly and beneficial to the way that the Cayman moves forward.
But then, two things, and I want to ask of you, because as I look at students that we try to instruct, whether formally in the classroom because of what is the subjects, the reading, the writing, the arithmetic, but also perhaps respectfully, even more importantly, about the values, the ethos, the integrity that should be not just in learning but in society. If we as a people don't know and don't share willingly, lovingly, and accurately, how can we expect others to embrace it? But is that compounded that so much still of our history is oral? What is recorded, there are questions by some who know better, that there's some inaccuracies there, whether deliberate or otherwise. And not only are there inaccuracies, but the accessibility of some of this isn't as readily available. You just can't type up a search engine and find it.
Well, you mentioned the word accessibility. Now, let's look at the community, the Cayman Islands community here. We got, they say 70,000 people. I don't think it's that many, but anyway, let's just use 70,000 people.
I'll go more to 100, but we can split hairs.
No. We got upwards of, could be between maybe 18 to 21 radio stations here in Cayman.
That many? Wow.
Yeah, it's somewhere in that figure. Now, I believe that the laws that were drawn up, at least when I had anything to do with them, had an element in there where these stations was obligated to carry local content, and that local content really would be defined as cultural or heritage or however you want to put it, not just somebody babbling, in front of a microphone.
Right.
And do you ever hear anything on any of the other ones?
And as you share that, I'm thinking that...
I just want to take that forward further. I don't think that it's being monitored to the level that it should be monitored. Because if every one of those, and there's not another community in the world, 70,000 people, and whatever square miles it is, that you'll find whatever the number is, but I think it's somewhere between 17 and probably 21 radio stations.
Right. Makes for an interesting, economic analysis. Such a small population supporting such a heavy capital investment otherwise.
It boggles your mind.
I won't go there today. But but even if we legislate, and even if we sanction through enforcement the non-compliance.
Well, there should not have to be. I don't think sanctions should come in. I think anyone that comes into a community and expect to use the public airways then should have a level of commitment to begin with to be of service to the community and to have an educational element with it.
And that is what is striking me, I'm saying. But again, maybe it speaks to something even more fundamental, like it. But Friday, I know.
We could go to that fundamental.
I shall. No, Miss Susan reminded me that our guests are here for the next segment at 12:30 with the Honorable Finance Minister. But Friday is going to be another great opportunity for us to. I love our maritime heritage. Unlike my brothers and my father, that I think definitely have salt water in their veins. I probably got a couple of drops myself, but not as much as.
You need a good ducking.
Yeah, they'll probably help you. But that's the thing, I find that I gravitate like a turtle towards the water. You just, it's something that I love. I don't because I go tomorrow. I've got to finish this thing. These are the things, right? But that's so ingrained in us that some of us, I know, if we're absent from the water too long, we get kind of withered and dry,
unsalted,
and then once we get back in, but it's that rich maritime heritage that is there.
Yeah, well, I think Friday, as I said before, it's our maritime is such a vast expanse that it would really take about anywhere between 6 and probably 12 programs to really delve in all of the various elements of it and sub-elements. Mm-hmm. But the program on Friday will just give an overview of what the maritime is all about and how it plays into, our economics and how it played into our development over the years. And in this era of Celebrate Cayman, hopefully that we'll be able to produce some detailed programs on the various segments, the seamen, the sailors, look at that. There are various sub elements in that, the deckhands, the officers, the engineers, worldwide travelers, worldwide recognition of Cayman maritime, the wives and families who played a very, 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 very important role. The ship registry, which has been in the news here recently, doing great things, and it's been here over 100. I think it was established in 1902, so that would make it about 117 years old. Mm-hmm. Doing great work. The entrepreneurs, the voyage financiers, the product buyers. There was a gentleman in St. Petersburg many years ago, Brian Henning, turtle meat cornbread Caymanian, who had a good business down there buying turtle and supplying it to the people over there who was interested in it. You look at the shipbuilders, the riggers, the sailmakers, the dock workers. I myself worked at actually three different shipyards many years ago. Merrill Stevens, one of the biggest dry dock operations on the U.S. East Coast, Dade Dry Dock and Miami Shipbuilding. And
all right, well, that's Mr. Loxley Banks. Is that your cue, sir? And as we go, before we go to the break, so Friday, and Miss Susan reminded me, get there, son. She's in charge.
Friday, 12:15, Cayman Islands Maritime, CI Retro, Talk Today segment.
All right. Looking forward to that, and I invite you to make a note and join us then. We get a chance to delve in more into our history, in particular as we focus on our maritime. We'll pause and take a short break. When we come back, the Honourable Finance Minister will be our guest. Get a chance to talk to the Director of the ESO as well as she accompanies him. We'll look at our CPI and the like. We'll get a chance to maybe look more closely at some of our financial independence. Please stay tuned for Talk Today.
Don't sleep on these savings at Tomlinson Furniture with King Silly mattresses for $475 and futons for $499 till supplies last. New arrivals every week. Tomlinson Furniture, corner of Hospital and Smith Road.
A caring and community spirit, cherished family and cultural values. These are some of the things that still embodies the Caymanian way of life in the Eastern Districts today. Savannah Pharmacy, your neighborhood pharmacy, located in Countryside Shopping Village, is delighted to offer products and services of real value. Whether it's catering to your family's medical needs or carrying apparel, gifts, and beauty products, Savannah Pharmacy provides you with more than just prescriptions. Remember, they're always just around the corner with everything your family needs and convenient opening hours, including Sundays and holidays. Savannah Pharmacy. For more information, call 946-3336.
Thinking of doing more to show your sweetheart you really care? Explore new roads together with the 2019 RAV4, Vamped Motors' #1 selling SUV. Save $2,000 off all 2019 RAV4s loaded with features you both will fall in love with, like maximum comfort and cargo space inside, eco mode for low fuel consumption, an audio system with USB and Bluetooth connectivity, vehicle stability and traction control to help you navigate wet roads, and advanced safety features to keep you and your loved ones safe. Do more for your sweetheart and save $2,000 now on the all-new 2019 RAV4 from Vamped Motors, Walkers Road. Get your car washed with Diamond Auto Care. $20 car wash special. $30 for SUVs, interior and exterior. Call 928-7336. Diamond Auto Care will leave your car with a sparkle and shine. Only $20. Call 928-7336.
Excuse me, I noticed you from afar.
Really? Me?
Well, not you. The KFC sandwich you're eating.
Oh, Zinger.
Sorry, I'm not trying to be funny.
No, it's called the Zinger Sandwich. Crunchy, juicy, 100% chicken breast, crisp lettuce, sweet mayo on a seeded bun with a little zing. KFC's chicken is not factory breaded, frozen and refried like the Burger Boys. Customize your KFC Zinger and dip it in barbecue sauce.
Wow, now I'm starting to notice you too.
KFC, it's finger licking good.
Are you looking to eliminate wrinkles and fine lines? Beyond Basics is offering Botox units at $9.95 each, a savings of $6 per unit. Get kissable lips, plump up cheeks, and reduce smile lines by saving $275 on dermal fillers. This February, love your skin with these specials and more at Beyond Basics. Call 916-SKIN to book your appointment today.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waging to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hello and welcome. Thank you so much for joining us here on this edition of Talk Today. Honored to be able again to welcome to our studio Honorable Finance Minister, Honorable Roy McTaggart, together with the Director of the Economics and Statistics Office, Ms. Maria Zingapan. And, I hope everybody, from the policymaker to the parent, from the principal to the pupil, appreciate the importance of economics. To my friends who are CPAs and chartered accountants and even chartered quantitative surveyors, economics rules the order of the day. Hey, Honourable Minister?
I have to agree with you.
It is, because it's quantitative as well as qualitative.
What I have to say to you is I have the economist right beside me.
That's why I could say that, sir.
Yes, right.
No, I say it, not just jovial, but sincerely, because I think a keen understanding of economic principles helps to guide not just an informed social and economic policy, but daily life. But equally, being able to have some semblance of the choices we make in life, they're all underpinned by economic considerations. Spiritual aside, but without question. Right, Madam Economist?
I hope I can do justice to your commendation.
Oh, man, no. I love it.
But what I would say is, a lot of what we do within the cabinet government is underpinned by what are the economic effects of the policy decisions that we take, and that's why you have a very active and very qualified and economics and statistics office to provide you with that information.
And if I may, Honourable Minister, just add to the Director of the ESO and to her team that their willingness over the years, not only to come here but to go to the media publicly, but their publications have allowed the general populace start, at the very least, become familiar, comfortable that these statistics, the collection, analysis, and then dissemination, but equally, the discussions help to give the public a better insight into what's happening.
Yeah, that's actually our vision, that with the support of the ministry, our vision is really to help inform decision making by providing the data as much as possible to all parties, whether in government or outside of government.
Okay, I'm going to be guided by you. I'm certainly going to be very excited to learn and get a chance to engage. Hopefully, I don't get ahead of myself. Hopefully, I don't ask or anything that is, But it's just, for me, it is exciting because this is real. Yeah. This is real stuff. At the outset, as we talk about the consumer price index and we talk about things like inflation and like, if it won't offend anybody, say, well, GC thinks we're in school or we don't. When we talk about inflation and we talk about indices and like, could we start maybe just to ask, well, what is inflation? Why is it? Why does that matter? I mean, a dollar's a dollar's a dollar. Well, let's just came back dollar and there's even more.
Well, yeah. First of all, good afternoon to our listeners.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, okay. So the inflation, when we say inflation rate, it actually measures the general increase. I would like to emphasize that. It's the general increase in prices. So it's not, it's an overall indication or indicator of the prices of goods and services that households in Cayman spend their money on. Okay, so it only represents price changes of consumer goods, meaning goods that are purchased by households. And so we measure the change in the consumer price index in two ways. One is what we call year on year, which is what we normally report. So we compare the price, let's say, of the second quarter of 2018 over the second quarter of 2017, and that is reported as the inflation rate. There's another inflation rate which is in the report. However, people don't discuss it because it normally represents the change from one quarter to another quarter. So the standard in economic reporting is really to compare year on year, okay? Because you're correcting for seasons. Because it could be, Dwayne, that let's say the price of eggs or food in one quarter is higher than the other quarter because of seasonality, right? So when you do it, when you compare two periods or two quarters for 2 years, then you're correcting it for seasonality. Yeah.
Right. And as I listen, it's so, well, I think evident that when you look at things, eggs, for instance, God forbid something was to happen and all of a sudden the egg production went down, you would expect maybe prices to go up because of limited supply. Yes. Well, evident to me.
No, and those are the things you anticipate would happen.
Right.
When prices move, people's affordability changes. And, people start to make choices if they see prices of items that they're normally accustomed to being able to afford changing quite significantly from period to period.
I think, honestly, as I look at, and I just talk about the Cayman populace generally, I think they're very knowledgeable about economic and political happenings. They may not use the terminology, they not even be as conscious that they are, but you look at people in the supermarkets, for instance, and you just watch them shopping, and you look at, just pick on bread or cheese or milk, those things that probably a little bit more perishable. Oh, this bread last week was 10 cents cheaper, or the price has gone up. I remember last month. They remember the prices,
yes,
especially our older folk, and not because they're on a fixed income. They just have that innate knowledge almost. So that sort of consciousness of pricing is indicative of what inflation is sort of doing to the purchasing power. All right.
Can I?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, because generally the public's aware of what we call the overall price index, but we in fact as well report, since you mentioned particular food items, we actually measure as well the inflation rates for very specific what we call division: food and non-alcoholic beverages, alcoholic beverages, and clothing and footwear, housing and utilities, and so forth and so on, right? And because that's important, because some people might consume more proportionately, right? They may consume more food than clothing and footwear, and therefore when price changes, prices of food changes more than clothing, they would feel it more. You know what?
Right.
They would feel the inflation rate more than way they consume less. So it actually depends as well on your spending pattern.
Yeah, and that household, for instance, that maybe have young children and they're going through growth spurts.
Yeah.
Perhaps in the summer, for instance, they maybe buy more clothing. That pair of shoes for the young boy in March. All of a sudden, by June, he's 2 sizes. Foot is 2 sizes bigger, and I got to buy shoes. So as you said, as they feel in that particular purchasing pattern, it will determine how it's affecting them. What is our inflation rate looking like thus far? I mean, trends and analysis, helps good information. But Honourable Minister?
Well, I'm happy to take it up with you. The most recent, now I can say, is the most recent report from the ESO, looking at inflation rate in the third quarter of last year. That was for the period ended September 30th, quarter ended September 30th last year. It was running at an annual rate of 3.5%. Now, what I would say that is quite substantially lower than the inflation rate that we saw in the second quarter of last year, where it was running at 4.8%. So we have seen within the certainly by the end of the third quarter, the inflation rate starting to moderate a bit from what we had been experiencing in all of certainly 2017 and probably into the first quarter of 2018 as well, where it was running at about 2-3.
The second quarter was 4.8.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
But I mean, in 2017, it was running at about 1.9, in all of the same period in 2017, it was 1.9%.
Yeah, September of last year, it was 1.4.
Yeah.
Yes.
No.
It was what we did see was a fairly significant spike in the second quarter of 2018. I think we would agree that there was, but we see it starting to moderate there in the third quarter.
And Minister, may I just mention which particular item, right? Because this really caused a significant spike in the second quarter. It's really airfares as well as fuel prices. For example, airfares rose by 52.3% in the second quarter. And the slowdown was significant because in the third quarter, the inflation rate for that item, airfares, was 8%. So a big slowdown. We have as well fuel prices. Fuel prices rose a bit, but just because the airfares, had a significant reduction. Yeah, it pulled down in a bit the overall inflation rate.
No, as I shared this, I was hopeful that more of us would either through the ESO.ky website or otherwise become familiar with our basket goods, become familiar with how we collect the data, what we use, what items we look at, but equally be very much active participants in supplying information to the ESO when requested, ensuring that we utilize the information. Just don't leave it for businesses and the like. And make suggestions where necessary.
Yeah, and I have to agree with you on that completely. I mean, the ESO, in the way they collect data, they can either go out and collect it themselves, which they do in things like the inflation reports, but we also ask the private households and private sector and the business community as well to supply them with information to help them gather information. And it's so important that the information that is submitted is accurate, because they help inform a lot of the decision makings, not just that a government makes, but the rest of the private sector does. For businesses, they look to a lot of these reports that we issue every year from the ESO as a basis upon which they too make important decisions with regard to the future of their own companies.
They may decide, hey, you know what, I probably need to provide more housing, for instance.
That's right. Actually, the CPI is probably the most popular statistics being requested from. It's being asked by banks, businesses, more so private sector actually than government.
Yeah, more than likely. All right. Well, Honourable Minister Ms. Maria Susan's reminding me we've got a break. She said, you getting talking, pay attention. All right, quick short break. I know it's 2:45. We'll break. We'll come back. We'll continue the discussion. If you think economics isn't exciting, you should see when we come back. We're going to give it to you in song. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
From happy beginnings to happy ever after.
Brit K protects your lifestyle with the best insurance cover at the best possible price.
Health insurance with far-reaching benefits.
95% of claims settled in 5 days.
Low-cost life insurance.
And investments.
Security in retirement.
With a custodian pension plan.
For happy beginnings and a happy ever after.
Visit britk.ky or call 949-8699.
Brit-K, where people come first.
At Seaboard Marine, customers often ask us questions about their shipments.
I have various items coming from different suppliers that I need to ship to Cayman. Do you offer consolidation?
Yes. Seaboard Marine offers consolidation for full and less than container loads. We can hold your packages at our Miami warehouse until everything arrives and ship it all in one go. And we have the best rates to Grand Cayman. Visit seaboardmarine.com for more information.
Shipping shore to shore.
I'm Reverend John D. Jefferson on behalf of the Westland Holiness Church of West Bay, Georgetown, and Northside. We are proclaiming the good news of salvation by lifting up the banner of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ.
Miami is so much more than just a shopping destination. Foodies, friends, and family are flocking to Miami for a variety of vacation experiences. From theater shows and concerts, theme parks and sports, to museums, fine dining, festivals, culture, spa, and more. And with regular Miami airfares now from just $182 CI round trip, including taxes, now is the time to plan your unique Miami getaway. For details and to book, call 949-2311 or visit CaymanAirways.com.
Quincy, where you is? I can't see you these days.
Darling, as our Jamaican friends say, I gone a foreign.
Well, I hope you coming back for Red Sky at night. You never miss that and you better not start now.
No, girl. I'll make sure I'm there. When is this again?
Saturday, March 2nd, Harkwell Theatre Grounds from 4 p.m. to midnight. Same delicious Cayman cooked food, all the dance, storytelling, dramatic and musical performances, and of course, all the local artisans selling their beautiful art, crafts, jewelry, clothes, and accessories. There's even a new development, the Caymanian Village.
Okay, well, I'll meet you at the entrance at 4 o'clock.
Don't forget your $15 to get in now.
Tickets for Red Sky at Night are $15 for adults, $5 for children 12 and under, $10 for seniors 65 and over, and students ages 13 to 17. Get yours today through Eventbrite or one of our many outlets across
14
the island.
hours per day? Tomlinson Furniture has cribs and beds for babies and toddlers, changing tables and more, including baby clothes and basket sets, like perfect gift packages prepared for newborns. Shop the Welcome Baby section of Tomlinson Furniture, corner of Hospital and Smith Road.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Welcome back to Talk Today. Thank you so much for joining us, and thanks, hopefully on air as well as off. Not just providing a very hospital accommodating environment, but genuinely showing my great pleasure for our guests, and in particular when we get information that is formal and official like this, that helps to inform as much as I believe the public sector, but more so the private sector's activities directly. It's crucial, to the economic prosperity, but equally the social stability.
Sure.
And Honourable Finance Minister, together with the Director of ESO, our guests, Honourable Royal Taggart, Miss Maria Zingapan. To that point, Honourable Minister.
Yeah.
Let me repeat
the point.
Yeah.
I think I missed.
No. To that point of where we're looking at businesses, for instance, saying we're going to gear up, we're going to do certain things, we're going to expand, or they may decide, we probably need to start cutting back, because those things can become self-fulfilling prophecies if they believe that this is going to be the probable outcome. Yeah. And as information is very timely and accurate, provided by us, so that the economists the public sector can do the analysis, that's sometimes probably complemented and supported by the private sector entities who are also crunching the numbers and saying, well, and that what makes it healthy.
Yeah. No, I think you're dead right there. And the other thing that I think that helps too to inform your views is what you see actually unfolding today as well with what the expectations are. And you hear that being discussed quite a bit in the news and on talk shows. Just give you a perfect example is that, there is much talk that, this recovery is long in the tooth, is a term we use, and that, the U.S. in particular, where we do probably 80% of our business, is due for a recession. Mm-hmm. Well, nobody really can predict whether that will materialize or not, but history does give you something upon which to take a look at. And economists right now are saying and sounding a caution note that it would appear that in the worldwide economy certainly is slowing. And you've seen the IMF now start to take down and lower their broad numbers with regard for the overall worldwide economic growth for 2019. That suggests to me very strongly that things are they are seeing things in a global place that must give them that so have them reduce their numbers, and it's something you have to take a look at, and you have to be mindful. You cannot ignore it. What is happening? You do so to your own peril. And that's particularly applicable, I think, to governments when they look at terms of their own spending plans and what their policies will be moving forward. You have to be, in order to manage yourself through a recession, you have to try and be prepared for it as best you can as a government. Mm-hmm. And if you have reserves set aside, if you practice fiscal prudence and stuff, they help to alleviate in a very big way the pain that a government and a country feels when there is a recession. Of course, you cannot eliminate the effects of it, but it certainly can go a long way towards mitigating some of the effects of it. One of the tools government has in order to try and generate economic activity is to spend more. That tends to be expansionary in nature and supporting an economy. But unless you got no money to spend,
it can be inflationary as well, huh?
Yeah.
Miss Maria?
Yeah. It's the minister mentioned earlier the IMF outlook for 2019-2020. There's a slowing down, but not recession actually. Yeah. So that's one thing we can note. The other thing we should note is that, yes, we have to be cautiously, they call it cautious optimism, because we have to understand that the Cayman economy has become more dynamic, because if you remember in recent years when the U.S. slowed down, we Cayman actually showed a stronger growth. So there is some sort of a decoupling, mainly because our domestic sectors such as construction was strong when tourism was slow. That this was in 13, 14, 15. So even though 2014 and 2015 were not strong years for tourism, you still showed stronger growth for Cayman, mainly because of development projects. So yes, we have to be cautious about the global impact of the slowing down economy, but doesn't necessarily mean that Cayman's growth will dip as low or even lower, because there could be other sources of growth within the economy. For example, we noticed, Minister, I think we have seen those numbers, health, the health sector, for example, is showing strong growth. One of the stronger sectors, emerging sectors that's growing faster than the average. No, so that's a good indication that the economy's diversification can help in possible slowdown in those sectors which are highly dependent on, let's say, the U.S. economy or the advanced economies.
So, Honourable Minister, from the perspective of the individual having a diversified portfolio in order to sort of hedge the investment strategy, the government talking about having multiple prongs to its economy, and not traditionally in the manufacturing and mining, for instance, or financial services and hospitality, having different legs. Three-legged chair, they say, is much more stable than two.
There are sectors that are probably like 6 years ago that are not there in terms of growth, but we see emerging slowly. For example, mining, quarrying, agriculture. You have seen them. We go to the groceries. There's a lot of more local produce, and so sectors which are seemingly small now are in fact growing, and that can help. I mean, not as significant as your two pillars, tourism and financial services. But
one cocoa fill basket, they say.
But the other thing too, I mean, we what you see emerge too in the numbers is the effects to the construction costs are having are playing. So I mean, I always think know that, and I've said this several times. Like in Cayman, we are net importers of inflation. Simply because of the amount of business that we do with the rest of the world. We import 80% of what we consume, and basically all the goods and services consumed. 80% of it is coming from North America, primarily the United States. Mm-hmm. So, whatever you see happening with the U.S., you can just look at our inflation lines as well, and you see they pretty much track what is happening in the U.S. with inflation. But the inflation line for us can be shifted. In other words, we can create, and we have our own inflation as well, to some extent, by virtue of how robust our own economy is, and construction is one area where that does show up quite clearly.
Talking of global trends, Dwayne, can we just emphasize this? Maybe it has not been discussed, but the CIP, as the minister has alluded to, the greatest source of our domestic inflation is in fact imported. It's mainly due to fuel and food prices. And the IMF reports actually would emphasize that these two commodities are on the uptrend. We're on the uptrend in 2018. So, and we see that in our own CPI basket, in our CPI reports. So it's fuel that's causing the inflation in Cayman, as well as food prices, but then food, imported food, right?
But even as I listen and we see the impact of global trends, for instance, and let's say investors are looking for another market, just thinking out loud, the unfortunate natural disasters in the Caribbean, a year and a bit ago, brought a lot of new money and new people with new money to the economy, potentially bidding up the prices of properties, potentially creating greater demand for new construction. That increased demand could push up prices. Good for the labourer who's tiling and the block layer, but the homeowner who's trying to build is now paying 50% more, whatever that number is. Knowing those numbers are important.
Yeah. No, and you're dead right with regard to it. It's creating increased demand for construction materials, and that definitely will have an effect on the prices. And
it is, and this is why economics is so crucial. Just like you need oxygen to live, a little bit of coconut water to enjoy life, you need to know economics.
Well, yeah. Well, stronger demand creates, pressures, inflationary pressures. So what's important is that there is real growth in the economy, meaning that whatever, because there are two ways to grow your, let's say, your income. It's either mainly because your real activity, the volume of activities is rising, or it's mainly caused by inflation. So what we have seen in the reports is that there's real growth. There's growth in the in the activity, not just because prices are rising. So that's how we call the real GDP growth, or gross domestic product adjusted for inflation. So what is dangerous is when you have GDP growing lower than inflation. So that, which would make a negative real GDP growth. But the thing is that based on indicators, we have real GDP growth that's positive. Okay, meaning it's more than what is due to inflation.
All right. Well, when we come back from our news break, Honorable Roy Target, Ms. Maria Zingapan will continue with us. Maybe we can look more at GDP growth and the like, look at some of the inflation coping strategies, and maybe the way forward. Not a crystal ball, but man, it's an economic spreadsheet, even better. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
From district to district, moving through the waters to Cayman Brac and Little Cayman. Your station, your voice. All things Cayman. One radio, many people. This is home.
Radio Cayman in the Cayman Islands.
Radio Cayman. Headline. Radio Cayman's newsroom. Headline. These are the biggest stories right now.
Another inmate joins the garbage collection team at the Department of Environmental Health after a successful pilot program which was launched at the end of last year. The initiative involves the deployment of suitably risk-assessed inmates to assist DEH with domestic garbage collection. In news elsewhere, the Supreme Court ruled unanimously Wednesday that the Constitution's ban on excessive fines applies to the states, an outcome that can help efforts to rein in police seizure of property from criminal suspects. Justice Ruth Ginsburg wrote the court's opinion in favor of Tyson Timms of Indiana. Police seized Timms' $40,000 Land Rover when they arrested him for selling about $400 worth of heroin. A convoy of trucks carrying hundreds of civilians, including men, women, and children, left the last enclave held by Islamic State militants in eastern Syria on Wednesday, signaling a possible end to a standoff that has lasted for more than a week. Chicago's top prosecutor recused herself from the investigation into the attack reported by Empire actor Jussie Smollett shortly after police requested another interview with the actor. The office of Cook County State's Attorney Kim Fox offered few specifics Tuesday when announcing that Fox was recusing herself from the case, which police said had shifted after detectives released two brothers who were initially deemed suspects. Those are your latest updates here on Radio Cayman. I'm Shanda Gallego.
Radio Cayman, the voice of the Cayman Islands. What's happening in your community? News and information, music and more. You can find us. www.radiocayman.gov.ky. Like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter. Radio Cayman is your choice, your voice for today's biggest news. Radio Cayman.
Talk today. But I do have some questions. Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back to Talk Today. Thank you for joining us in the studio, the Honorable Roy Taggart and the Director of VSO, Ms. Maria Zingapan. Our guests, and thanks very much. And hopefully the people are listening, even if they don't like economics. And maybe accounting is their forte. I forgive them for that. Honourable Minister.
The main difference is...
I will withhold comments.
Yes, sir. Let the record reflect the Minister has exercised great judgment.
Accountants are stricter with regards because you have to understand statistics is the science of estimation. It's science of probabilities.
Almost an oxymoron, science of estimation.
Yeah, almost.
Almost.
So it's science of probabilities.
Yeah. No, I like the fact that the two complement each other so strongly. Can you imagine how sober an economist is married to an accountant? I mean,
you will have to doubt. Some a statistician will say this is 100% accurate. There is no such thing.
No, but this is the fun.
There are margins of error.
There you go. Classrooms and teachers and students can have. I can see policymakers as well as private sector investors sitting around the table looking at numbers and numbers. and informative how we apply them. And I think as we look at the global trends, as we look at our own growth in our GDP and the like, and potentially whether it's this administration or the one following or the one, 10 years from now, what are we doing in relation to our investment infrastructure? We need to borrow. Can we borrow internally? Do we need to go to the market? What rates will we get? All those things have to be informed by our economic numbers.
Yeah. And, you base those sort of decisions too on what are the expectations in terms of your future growth. Mm-hmm. And that's, that helps to inform the policy decisions we make. If we have to borrow, will the economy grow sufficiently to enable us, or will we have the sufficient revenues to allow us to meet our obligations and repay that debt when it comes due in a timely basis? A lot of stuff that goes into making those decisions.
You look at the cost of capital, the country.
Talking of that, normally what economists would normally have what they call the debt sustainability indicators. So when country or the central government of that country is borrowing at a rate more than the real GDP growth, there's that's kind of a red light there. So and that is the reason why we at DSO monitor what we call the debt to GDP ratio. Right. So the good news is that over the years it has declined. So the lower it is, the better. In fact, Cayman has one of the lowest debt to GDP ratio. Yeah.
Which is probably translated into why some of the international agencies have rated us so favorably as a borrowing nation, as it were.
Absolutely. And I mean, it gives us great comfort and assurance as well, because it helps to underpin to that rating that we get by Moody's with regard to, a AA3 rating, which is, average person might not understand just how important that is to you when you do get into a marketplace to look and to borrow. And when you see that kind of a rating too, it helps to influence investors' decisions, because they see and know that, for a country that has such a high debt rating, it indicates that there's stability there, and that, any sort of you're not going to have any rash or very shocks, necessarily fiscal shocks to your system that might, give people cause to worry about the safety of any investment that they might make locally.
That borrower has a fairly high degree of assurance that they're going to be repaid.
And the fact that we have such a high rating too, it's indicative too that we, when you're in the market to borrow, that you're going to get some of the best rates that you can, because your banks and investors, who if you're issuing bonds, it's all going to be on the perceived risk of your ability to repay and honor your obligations.
I didn't check this earlier, and if it is, I can always come back to it. Not significant, but you mentioned rates in borrowing and our average rate or rates now for some of our larger borrowings. Do we know offhand, Ms. Maria? She has a recall of everything, so she probably does. But if you don't, that's not pertinent at this time.
Well, you're referring to the public sector or central government,
right?
Yeah.
Or interest rates we borrow. Okay.
I do have an idea of the weighted average rates for
the weighted
domestic market. Yeah. But let me just. Actually, the AA3 rating of government is not just useful for government, right? But it affects the borrowing rates for private sector when they go to the capital market, because the sovereign rating normally underpins as well their creditworthiness of non-government entities borrowing from the global capital market. Yeah. So it's a rule of thumb, correct me if I'm wrong.
No, you're right. Yeah.
That, that normally the lower the sovereign rating is, the lower as well the sovereign risk associated with the, let's say, a private business borrowing from the global market.
Yeah. I think corresponding to, and just historically, because I don't have before, and I don't want to speak specifically to anything, but just historically, if say our government has good international rating and is able to go to the capital markets, get a decent, a competitive rate, they should equally be able to go to the local commercial entities and correspondingly get a good rate. Hopefully that's something that we're doing going forward as part of that fiscal prudence to make sure that, in the past it isn't the perception like we've seen in some projects where the government's paying for it, so therefore instead of being $5, it'll be 5 times more. We're responsible.
No, you do right, because they are too. If government goes into the local market there to borrow as well, those things do stand you in good stead. Significant amounts of funding, those often would have to be approved by head office. I know those are going to be sort of matrix that they'll be looking at as well.
Right. Could we ask then, as we were talking about GDP, and certainly we'll go through some of the growth in the trade and the like, but I was respectful, probably remiss of me. Not everybody's listening is going, economics, excited as I am. So that person listening, well, what is GDP and why does that matter to me? I just want to know my paycheck and I can go into the supermarket and I can pay my mortgage and all these things. But why is the GDP and this growth and knowing and understanding and talking about it important?
Right. Well, GDP stands for Gross Domestic Product. So basically, it's the total value of all goods and services produced domestically. So it is the most basic indicator of economic performance across countries, and that's why it's most basic. Therefore, all countries actually have to produce that. So why is it important? Of course, for policy making, they have to know the more frequent that we do that, the better for their decision making, right? And how the economy grows, and not just the whole economy, but which sectors, for example, are growing, and that information is not just useful for government, but as well as for the private sector, if they so choose to decide to, let's say, diversify their business. They would want to know which particular sectors in the economy are in fact growing or not. We have what we call sunrise industries, sunset industries, emerging industries, and so the measurement or our GDP estimation as well captures that, enables government to identify which particular sector is emerging so that they can have the support, if further needed, by let's say support from government, then they can. It informs them, in other words.
Would then necessarily an increase in GDP lead to a corresponding increase in inflation?
Not necessarily.
Okay.
Right. It can work both ways. For example, when the starting point of your economy is under capacity, meaning you are actually producing below what they call potential capacity. So further growth in domestic product does not necessarily mean, because you're using scarcer resources, it does not necessarily mean that it will cause inflationary pressures. The danger point is when you're already near capacity or over capacity, and then that's what they call overheating. Then you will see your inflation rising and claims for higher wages, for example. And for example, if your unemployment rate goes down, right? So there's pressure for higher wages. Right. So that's one indication whether an economy is already at near capacity or almost over capacity, when your basic resource in the economy, which is labor, is employed almost near full employment. Yeah.
And that's why sometimes I've been toying with the idea of doing a dissertation, the Cayman paradox. Here we have a population with, presumably at one time, full employment, and then all these work permits to fill the need within the sectors. And then we've seen the potential inflationary tendencies, the hot money to come into the economy. The Cayman economic engine seems to be quite different, or at least was.
There's, you know why? Because you have, it's a basic, in terms of labor, it's an open labor market. Right. There are no, although there's a work permit system, there's no
serious barriers.
Governments that stop hiring. So long as businesses have that, are enabled to to add capacity by employing from abroad, then you can avoid, overheating.
Mm-hmm. Right. But Honourable Minister, with that, then that private sector entity that has demonstrated a need for additional labour, more often than not will get that additional labour through permanent or otherwise. That brings on the economy a need for more housing and other infrastructure. The government responds and provides that. And unlike the cyclical sort of cost-plus inflation that we'll see, you're seeing this increasing population, increasing demand for services, increasing the...
You see, this is one thing that we will... Okay, what happens at post-Ivan, there was a lot of increase in housing supply, right? So that when, in fact, there was the global recession, right? Cayman was not impacted by so much inflation. You know why? Because in fact rentals went down, which is both good news and bad news.
But also there's a decrease in population drop for interim, a short period.
There's higher supply of houses, right? And the work permits slowed down, so rentals went down, which kind of depressed. In other words, it slowed down an inflationary rate. However, we have to take into account that it's bad news for the housing owners, because it means loss in real income. So
no, I'm with you, and that's I think Honourable Minister is
and what she's speaking to, I knew of, and I experienced it and saw it firsthand.
Yes,
when we moved into the recessionary period, prices were depressed in the rental market because the demand just simply was not there, and we've seen that in the last 4 to 5 years completely reversed, and instead of being it's now a landlord's market where basically there's such a shortage of good housing available in the market now that prices are being prices are increasing.
Right.
And Minister, that's one thing we can say about the housing market. It's very dynamic, because we see that the rents are stabilizing, meaning they're actually they're increasing housing supply. So you have a very good market in the sense that it catches the opportunities right away, which corrects pressures for higher rentals, for example.
So I mean, from a government standpoint, I mean, and looking at it on a macro level, to me, you see now the robust activity in the construction industry responding to that demand for the shortage of housing, and so yes, I mean it's a type of problem you'd rather have rather than the other way around, where the economic activity in rentals or ownership just isn't there anymore.
High supply and no availability.
No availability to do it, and that's where people got into trouble. In a big area where people got into trouble in the recession, because it extended themselves in buying or building, acquiring, stuff to rent, and had them related mortgages, and ran into trouble with actually renting the stuff. So that was a big part, a significant part of it.
With that now, I mean, potentially this analysis and the thank you, Ms. Susan. The projections going forward, potentially, if there is a glut of new housing on the market and the price points are not there, we could see the same thing happening. If there is not sufficient supply, then we could see heating. But I think, as you shared, Ms. Maria, it stabilizes because our market responds fairly quickly.
Yeah. You have a very robust construction sector. In fact, it's one of the top 3 highest growing sectors. Yeah.
Now, with that, and as we look at our economic reports, as we look at the CPI in particular, and we're seeing, if we were going to make projections, longer out, the more probably,
short term, it's slowing down. I say that with confidence.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
What, 5% slowing? 2.5%? What are you thinking?
You'll be surprised.
I wouldn't actually.
No, what I'm trying to say is that
I know.
I've seen the results.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'm actually reviewing the fourth quarter report. Yeah.
Well, I was going to...
And my gut feeling tells me, because I have not seen the fourth quarter numbers for inflation, but I expected that we would see it substantially lower from where it would be at the third quarter. And from this standpoint alone, just what I see happening with fourth quarter inflation in the United States market, because it's very benign. It was like 0.2%. Which is indicates to me that it will fall.
Dwayne, where fuel prices go, that's
that's where your economy goes.
Okay, so like for example, compare how much you were paying for full tank in December to how much you're paying now. Yeah, or maybe full tank in September last year compared to December last year, more precisely.
And thank you, Shalon. This is why I think that our populace, even though they may not consciously sit down and get into economic analysis and arguments, they're actually very acutely aware. They'll tell you, well, in summer or September, it cost me X dollars to fill up my car, and now it's costing me, is this more, is this less?
Right.
They know whether they're spending and how much more or how much less. They understand the economics behind it.
The reason why I cited fuel, because fuel affects, of course,
everything.
It affects cost of producing electricity, your transport, airfare. Yeah.
What about construction and housing? I mean, on one hand, we're seeing this increased sort of activity that could potentially be driving up prices in the short term, the price of the tile or the demand for the concrete, for argument's sake.
I think, Minister, the government still has that duty concession.
Which helps significantly, but we're still seeing, the prices, concrete, for instance.
And well, I mean, those are sort of things you don't control. What we have done is look at the things that we can control. And, over the years, government has taken, some very positive steps to relieve the pricing, to give relief. And I think some of the things we've done, have contributed for certain sectors of the economy to help in a big way. For example, if I could just mention that we've given increased financial assistance to the poor last year, implemented that to those who are most vulnerable in our communities. That has been increased. So yes, that segment of your economy does have more. Had more money to spend, and so you're able to counteract that in the increasing prices in some way. There, it gives real relief. All civil servants got a 5% increase in your salary. This it was last year. We did it retroactive to July 1. So that I think has gone. It was a real increase when you think, 5% increase in salaries, but an inflation rate that's somewhat less than maybe around 3.5%. So it was a real impact on everyone within the public service. And then, something as small as the increase in the duty-free allowance that you have coming through the airport, raising that by $150 per trip per person, has a real effect, and it again puts real spending power in your citizens' hands.
That disposable income can contribute at some point, whether we do it now or not. I won't expect it. I believe there's a group of us who have this hypothesis that businesses, retail primarily, expecting either new government taxes or an increase of salaries to civil servants, anticipate increased costs, and as a result put up their prices, and if this is announced, put their prices again. So the fellow has tracked this over a couple of administrations and has seen what seems to be a little bit more than a coincidence. And I'm wondering if there's any way to track the analysis. So increasing prices as per the CPI as a result of corresponding increases in taxes or mooted increases in salaries to civil servants. I can give you off here a specific example of what he shared with just on the data, but it's telling.
I mean, I'd be keenly interested in seeing that kind of information because first time I'm hearing it.
Yeah, we see, we got some people in this country that are just, they're so smart that, they got 24 hours a day and they use it wisely.
It could be, for example, if higher inflation could push a COLA, or it's the other way around, that, an increase in demand could, an increase in income could boost demand for certain goods. However, that's for a closed economy. Like, in other words, if you can always, or your supermarkets can always import. So it eases off the pressure from higher domestic demand to the extent that they can actually purchase more. But there could be certain goods where you can easily increase supply. Okay, or certain services. Let's say housing repairs. Okay, or services mainly, because you cannot easily increase supply of service unless businesses will hire more workers, maybe, etc. So it depends on how flexible the suppliers, the domestic suppliers can, because you cannot assume that the domestic suppliers would intentionally control supply just so they can take advantage, and increase prices.
But we know suppliers sometimes will maybe buy in bulk, and this is
in the short run. There could be inflationary pressures from higher salaries, etc. But not over the medium run or long term.
Why I think Cayman is in a unique position because so much of everything that we have here that we consume is imported, and the availability of that our local retailer is trying to source a particular product, and we have to acquire it at a higher price.
Not just because the civil service got a 5% increase in July, and there's no, because as we see the inflation rate in fact slowed down. So there you go.
All right. Well, we were busy chatting and I certainly enjoyed it. But Ms. Susan tells us there's a call online. Honourable Minister, we go to the phones, perhaps?
Absolutely.
Honourable Roy Maitagat, Ms. Maria Zingapan are our guests. And we're not solving the world's problems, but we might. Let's go to the phones. Good afternoon. You're on Talk Today. Hello. Good afternoon. Okay. Well, isn't I know, Honourable Minister, Ms. Maria, you have press engagements, and I am reminded that. Yes, are you there? Hello? Yeah.
Hello?
Yes, good afternoon. I think we're almost hearing a caller. Just Ms. Susan going to attend to you. I do apologize to both our guests and our caller. We're almost there, sir. As soon as Rooster finishes renovating their studio, we get the new equipment. Just kidding, sir. Just kidding. Oh,
you're in a good mood.
He's gonna get in trouble, boy. Man, it's good thing I have a good home to go home to. I have to be exited early. No, I'm sorry. No, our engineer's been working tirelessly, and the studio over there is almost unrecognizable. So thanks. So that caller, our sincerest apology. Maybe we'll get it fixed in a second. There's probably the red button, the blue button, and the green button. They're gonna press one, and it's gonna work in a bit. If she gets the caller, if not, respectfully, in the time remaining, sir, Miss Maria, what would you want us to share with us?
From my standpoint, and I'm wearing my political hat here, if I can.
Yes, sir. Please.
I think what I want what I would say is that what the reports, most recent support reports, do show that the Cayman economy continues to perform well. We are seeing a decline in unemployment rates. We're seeing an expanding GDP, all indicating of economic growth. And certainly from my perspective, looking at on a broad level, opportunities are there for Caymanians in terms of employment, and jobs. To me, from what I see where I sit, quite readily available. So it's the type of thing a government wants to see. I mean, I don't receive and I don't hear the cries today that I did probably 4 or 5 years ago when people when, you know, unemployment rate was up at 10.2% or 10.5% when it peaked. So it's a real gratifying, situation right now with where we are in terms of, people are able to work, and they are able to put food on their families' tables, and that's really positive. And I think the challenge we as a government face is to make sure the conditions continue to exist to be able to promote and to enable economic growth to continue, to provide the right environment for the private sector to continue to invest, expand, and create and maintain the existing employment. And that's the challenges that you face as a government daily.
Daily, often. Maria?
Yes. Well, thank you, Dwayne, for giving us this opportunity to inform the public of some of the indicators we publish. These are available at our website, www.eso.ky. And speaking of unemployment rates, we have our next labor force survey coming up. And we are so thankful, Dwayne, to our householders, and because we have one of the highest response rates among the territories in the Caribbean with respect to our labor force survey. And I would like again to appeal for cooperation from the public. The first survey day, the first day of the labor force survey will be on March 10th. So we will be on the field again for 4 weeks, at least 4 to 6 weeks maybe. So if you could just please extend your cooperation to our labor force survey enumerators.
If I may ask, just two things. One, because we know that some businesses receive a little packet with information that the surveys they have to complete.
Right.
When they receive them, we know that information when submitted is highly confidential. We understand that. Yeah. Is it required, is it mandatory for the recipient of this packet to complete and return?
Yes.
If not, okay.
Yeah.
The law does require that.
Yeah, we do know that. And just secondly, if you would, if it's not inappropriate, please accept an invitation to come back, whether you want to send through some bullet points on a piece of paper for the third quarter numbers for the labor force, and we'll share them publicly, whether together with the Honourable Minister or any of the team. Come in and share with us. I'll try my best to behave. No promises, all right? But I certainly will enjoy and learn so much from you.
We'll keep you in order too, Dwayne.
Good luck to you, sir.
Anyway, just want to say thank you too for hosting us today. I'm happy to come back again, and perhaps when the labour force survey comes out, not too distant future now,
right.
We'll be in a good position to come back and share some more good information with the public.
Please do. And like I said, honestly, when the fourth quarter results are there, I just honestly believe that in our education system, and specifically within our society, being able to talk openly and freely about our economic numbers helps us to become a little bit more comfortable, help us become better informed as to why those things are important, and to realize that we make these decisions every day. Yeah. A phrase or a term everybody should know, opportunity cost. We are affected by it all the time. We're doing it and we don't even know.
Yes.
Right. Thank you so much, Honourable Minister. Ms. Maria, thank you again.
Thank you.
My schedule says, Ms. Susan, that we're going to be talking to Clint Eastwood about the iguana cull. He's been hired as a new head of the iguana cull. I'm not sure, but anyway, that's what's on the schedule. Will it be Clint Eastwood? I don't know. Or as they say in Westway, Clint Eastwood. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
Can you imagine where Cayman runs off renewable energy? We can. Learn how you can join government and be an energy advocate.
Visit the Ministry of Commerce, Planning and Infrastructure's Facebook page to learn more.
I'm Reverend John D. Jefferson on behalf of the Westland Holiness Church of West Bay, Georgetown, and Northside. We are proclaiming the good news of salvation by lifting up the banner of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ.
Save time, don't stand in line. You can apply for or renew your trade and business license online 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Just visit dci.gov.ky and click on the Trade and Business Online application link. Now, you don't need to stand in line, take time out of your busy schedule or try to find parking. You can apply for your trade and business license online. Visit dci.gov.ky today and save time for running your business.
Give yourself great hair with a Wash, Blow and Go hair service special for $39.99 from Beyond Basics. Finish your polished look with facial hair threading services. $5.99 for lip or chin, $9.99 for brows, or $24.99 for full face threading. Only at Beyond Basics this February. Call 916-SKIN to book your appointment today.
Don't forget to tune in every Monday through Friday for the 7 a.m. news, brought to you by Cayman National Bank, proudly serving the Cayman Islands since 1974. Visit Cayman National Bank today for all of your financial needs.
Get your car washed with Diamond Auto Care. $20 car wash special. $30 for SUVs, interior and exterior. Call 928-7336. Diamond Auto Care will leave your car with a sparkle and shine. Only $20. Call 928-7336.
A caring and community spirit, cherished family and cultural values. These are some of the things that still embodies the Caymanian way of life in the Eastern Districts today. Savannah Pharmacy, your neighborhood pharmacy, located in Countryside Shopping Village, is delighted to offer products and services of real value. Whether it's catering to your family's medical needs or carrying apparel, gifts, and beauty products, Savannah Pharmacy provides you with more than just prescriptions. Remember, they're always just around the corner with everything your family needs and convenient opening hours, including Sundays and holidays. Savannah Pharmacy. For more information, call 946-3336.
Our children, they are the future of our country. So often, being a parent means making the tough decision now so that they can flourish and prosper.
The American Boarding School Fair will be visiting Cayman on Tuesday, February 26th at the National Gallery. With Cayman's growing and diverse global economy, this is the perfect opportunity to learn about the educational options available to Caymanian students, firsthand from visiting delegates.
There is no charge to attend. You have nothing to lose and potentially everything to gain. With specialized programs and a focus on individuals with learning differences, these leading institutions provide a well-rounded education and international experience.
Yes, the boarding school fair is free to attend for all parents and students at the National Gallery on February 26th from 5 to 7 p.m. For more information, visit the admissions page at www.gow.org or call 1-716-652-3450. That's 1-716-652-3450.
Miami is so much more than just a shopping destination. Foodies, friends, and family are flocking to Miami for a variety of vacation experiences. From theater shows and concerts, theme parks and sports, to museums, fine dining, festivals, culture, spa, and more. And with regular Miami airfares now from just $182 CI round trip, including taxes, now is the time to plan your unique Miami getaway. For details and to book, call 949-2311 or visit CaymanAirways.com.
Talk today.
But I do have some questions.
Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back to Talk Today. Thank you so much for joining us. And again, thanks to the Honourable Finance Minister and Miss Maria earlier for not only sharing some timely information, but to allow us to truly enjoy ourselves in discussion relative to economics and inflation. And like, you think those things are dry? Well, they're not, but I can understand if you think so. Now, I'm very grateful to the good company of Mr. Fred Burton joining us. We're talking about the green iguana cull. You know, I joked earlier, you know, the Wild Wild West, you know, Clint Eastwood coming up in the studio. I was expecting, if you had on a Stetson when you walked in, I could mistake you. Good afternoon to you, Mr. Fred.
And good afternoon, yes.
It's fun, huh?
Yeah.
But I must share, just... and please, you know, inform our public, tell us all about, you know, the ongoing registration and the progress, and as you wish. And for those who listen, Mr. Burton will only be with us until 2 p.m. You know, hopefully he'll be able to go out sailing, but he probably has to go back to his desk. Well, we can imagine. For what it's worth, the sentiments that I have received, unofficially, unsolicited, is that generally the public, whether it's the dining pants run, whether it's the person out, walking the dog or exercising,
Mm-hmm.
noticeable reduction. Now, I haven't gone east, I haven't gone too far beyond Savannah, but appearances seem so far that is the general perception.
That's the perception, and it's really, really encouraging to see. But I must inject a cautionary note.
Okay.
So basically, the Terrestrial Resources Unit staff have been hard at work out in the bush earlier this month, doing an interim survey. We haven't quite got the final results yet, but we probably will have them at some point next week. The preliminary indications are that the survey statistics bear out that the population has actually been hammered, but we haven't got the actual numbers. Now, in terms of numbers we do have, we know that it's gone way over 400,000 now that have been sent to burial at the landfill. I wish there was a better thing we could do with them, but it's just the way that is. The sheer volume of the cull is far greater than any potential use for the animals.
So the potential that someone talked about of using it for maybe a food stock for animals not there to export for other meat thus far has not been materialized.
Not on any scale. There's been a small amount of green iguana meat exported to the US by Spinion. I think that operation is temporarily on hold. I think they're looking at other options. It's a little bit interesting because, if we are as successful as we'd like to be with the green iguana cull, then anybody who's making income off the green iguanas is actually not looking at a very good business model for the long term. For the short term, there's still very good money to be made on this green iguana cull. It might be when you go out there and you see there aren't nearly as many iguanas around, that what has really happened is the easy ones have gone.
Low-hanging fruit,
but if you go out east, for instance, the numbers are pretty much the same as they were before we started the cull, because it's not worth going out East End to get relatively small numbers of iguanas if you can go to West Bay and get ridiculously large numbers of iguanas for the same effort. So now that diminishing effort in the west side is starting to kick in, then we're beginning to notice that perhaps the eastern districts should get a little more attention. But also we're noticing that the people who are really doing well about this are the people who are adapting to the situation. And they're making the effort to go into the bush a bit, going after the iguanas, honing their skills, working at it hard. And it's very interesting because we've now got 450 registered cullers, roughly, round numbers.
450, roughly.
We did a second registration. We brought another 100 in on top of the 350 we had before. But now, if you look at that 450, 100 of them have never brought a single iguana to the reception. So we really only have 350 cullers that have ever been active in any way, shape or form at all. Which is, I guess you expect that. But of those numbers, really, if we want to look at what's coming into the landfill, because we're getting around about 3,000 a day on a good day at the moment coming into the landfill. Most of those iguanas are being brought in by 20 or 30 individuals. There are significant numbers of iguanas cumulatively from everybody else, but the people who are really making bank on this are making bank because they're really going for it. We could really do with a few more of those, dedicated, determined, bush-hardy people, and we don't really feel that we've necessarily registered everybody who might be useful in this cull.
Okay, I'm going to ask about the registration process. We're going to ask about what you require, of the applicants and the like. But just respectfully, when the iguanas are received at landfill, 2 questions: what state do you want them in, other than no longer alive, or maybe that's fine too? And secondly, what happens when they arrive at landfill?
Okay, so the landfill operation is under video security all the time for obvious reasons, because technically each dead iguana is worth the better part of $5. So we don't want to, we have a level of security there and a level of monitoring. A culler will come in, and they're a registered culler. Because they're a registered culler, they will have a card, and the card will have an ID and a number on it, and that's the card that the iguanas will be receipted to. So he presents the receipt to the cull manager staff there. They accompany him or her to the skip, and they literally count them out of whatever vehicle and container that they brought with them into the skip, count them, sign off on the paperwork for that number of iguanas, and away they go. The skip itself is emptied at the end of every working day under supervision into the interior of the landfill and covered, and then brought back to the reception site ready to start again the next day.
Is there, just thinking to the days of accounting and sort of auditing, we know the count is going into the skip. As this exited, is it just dumped in, or is there a count saying, okay, 100 went in, so therefore there should be 100 coming out?
We're talking about a few tons.
No, I understand.
So no, we don't count them out, but we do keep an eye on the container all the time. So there really isn't an opportunity for anybody to fish those iguanas out of the container and have them counted again. Those are the sorts of things that we're always aware there's a danger. There's all kinds of potential for fraud in any kind of situation like this, and of course we have to do everything we can.
So they're emptied at the end and then just covered up. They're not incinerated. They just buried over.
No, there's too much for any incineration. The volume is just too great. We would prefer if we could have incinerated them all, but until the waste to energy plant is up and running, I don't think that's an option.
So then, thus far, the numbers that have come through have been, from what we've gathered, fairly significant.
Yeah, I mean, this is pretty much the level we'd hoped to get going on. What we did not know, and still do not know, is how successfully we can sustain this level of culling now that we've hit diminishing returns. If we can keep this up through the course of the year, if we can increase the workforce a bit, and if people adapt and develop their culling skills a bit, I think there's a good hope that we can take the guts out of this population, if you'll excuse the
no pun,
gruesome pun, in the course of this year, because there's two big things coming up, right? One is the mating season, so the iguanas are starting to get active now. It's the heat is just beginning to creep into the weather a bit. The rain is going to ease up a bit. And so what's going to happen is the iguanas that are out there are going to become more visible, and I'm hoping that's going to reflect in cull numbers. And then, of course, the females are going to want to go and lay eggs, and that puts them out in the public domain where they can be picked up. And those animals are really valuable to cull. A female full of eggs, if you cull it at that point, you're not just getting rid of one iguana, you're getting rid of all those future iguanas that she's got.
But you're getting paid for one.
You still only get paid for one. And yes, there's the temptation might be to take that animal and try and turn that one iguana into 60, but that's a lot of work, and it takes a while, and it might well not work. And we're actually talking quite seriously about introducing regulations to make that illegal, because down the line that could actually really work against us. Yeah.
And then when they recede, you want the iguanas in its non-live state.
Absolutely. The key thing about this is we need people who are culling to basically do so legally. And to legally kill an animal, you have to not cause it any unnecessary suffering.
So humanely as possible.
So humanely, and humanely in practice means brain death as soon as reasonably possible. So
do you require then the culler to bring all, or if not, what part of the iguana to demonstrate that,
the whole iguana? We originally really felt strongly that we wanted people to eat these iguanas if they were going to eat these iguanas, and we didn't want to dissuade people from that. So we said we would accept heads, but that backfired on us because heads are easy, and people were dumping corpses and bringing us heads, and the corpses were ending up in a lot of places they shouldn't be. So we just had to close that right down. So now if somebody comes with a batch of iguanas and one head and said, I ate that one, we'll say fine. But large deliveries of heads are not being accepted.
Right. And those are the people who eat, and they're very tasty, I'm told. And
I can recommend it.
Yeah, you've tasted it, huh?
Oh, yeah.
I've had some friends who've tried it, and they love it. I haven't.
It was actually, strangely enough, it was on the menu at Kaboo. There was a certain Thomas Tennant there who was cooking the stuff up and serving it to
Yeah, Chef Thomas is a good guy, man. But then Kaboo was That's for another time, another place, another story, another people. Miss Susan, are you saying that we have to take a break now? And if not, we're going to keep chatting until she tells me otherwise. Mr. Fred Burton is our guest as we talk about iguana cull. The registration process, what do you require, and share with us?
Okay, well, first of all, we've done 2 registration drives. We did one big one last October, and that was big. Like we had queues outside the doors of the building for every night that week. We then developed a short list of people, not a short list, a wait list of people who missed that and still wanted to register. So we did it again in January. But what we have found is there are still people who say they wanted to do this and they hadn't heard about it. And it's quite clear now that we're not going to cull more iguanas than we got the budget for, so we're okay to register as many people as want to register. So we're going to open registration permanently for the time being. What that means is if you're eligible, and I'll go back to the eligibility in a minute, if you're eligible, you can go to the landfill reception office there where they receive the iguanas and start registering as a green iguana culler. They will basically need some sort of photo ID and some sort of evidence that it's actually legal for you to work. And that means either you need to have, evidence you're Caymanian, or you've got to have a passport stamped with your permanent residency and the right to work, or whatever it might be.
But a person legally here on a work permit, can you be a culler?
No, because the work permit is specific to their work, and it doesn't typically say you can also be a green iguana culler. So it is for basically for Caymanians, for companies registered in Cayman, and for other people who have got permanent residency and the right to work.
Mr. Burton, I'm going to ask you just to allow us to interject for a sec. Quick break. When we come back, we'll conclude our discussion. Mr. Frederick Burton, please stay tuned for Talk Today.
Accommodate small or large living spaces with reversible sectional sofas. Now on sale in a variety of colours for $750 from Thomas.
From groceries to construction materials, all sectors of our economy depend on the port. But it is now 40 years old. Its infrastructure is degrading, and we feel the strain from insufficient space for both cargo and cruise operations. The time is now. A new expanded port facility is needed to allow both cargo and cruise to operate efficiently and to support our island's continued growth and development. Support the port, support our tourism, support Cayman's continued growth and development.
The 15th annual Cayman Economic Outlook returns on February 28th for another year of educating, informing, and stimulating the local community, bringing together industry thought leaders and business professionals to explore their theme, Dynamic New World, Braving the Turmoil. Speakers include economist Norina Hertz, University of Oxford professor Ian Golden, Digital Revolution journalist Andreas Ekstrom, biotechnology futurist Jamie Metzel, and professional surfer Mark Matthews. Tickets are selling fast. Reserve your seat at rfceo.ky.
Whether you're planning your child's next birthday party or simply looking for a social night out, look no further than Kingpin Bowling at King Sports Center.
With a range of packages and specials for bowling parties, socials, and corporate team building, Kingpin Bowling offers what no one else can. The only bowling alley in Cayman. And it's indoor fun, which means no mosquitoes, AC, and don't forget about their bowling bar. Book your bowling lanes today. Call 946-BOWL. That's 946-2495. Email kingpinbowling@candw.ky. For more information, visit their website, www.kingsportscenter.com.
King Sports Center, providing your fitness, recreation, and relaxation needs.
Minimize age spots, dull skin, and acne, and erase fine lines and deep wrinkles with a combination of a microdermabrasion facial and laser skin tightening treatment, followed by a glow mask and face massage for only $250, a savings of $200. That's 4 treatments for the price of 1. Only at Beyond Basics this February. Call 916-SKIN to book your appointment today.
Plastic pollution is a global issue. Even our beautiful islands can't escape plastic being found on our beaches and in the ocean. Together, we can change this. We can start by taking the 345 Pledge, which is a personal commitment to make better choices in our everyday lives. I am Kelsey Woodman-Bodden, Miss World Cayman Islands, and in a united effort for Cayman to be more environmentally friendly for the betterment of our future generations, I challenge all residents to take the 345 pledge, which can be found at plasticfreecayman.com.
Talk today.
But I do have some questions.
Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Good afternoon. Welcome back to Talk Today. Thank you for joining us. Thanks to Mr. Fred Burton for joining us. And, his Terrestrial Resources Unit, right?
Yep.
Yeah. And as we look at the iguana cull, I think many can share that perhaps on this part of the island, we're seeing a noticeable reduced population, at least noticeable on the roads and the like. They're probably still out and about. If I could ask, there have been estimates as to potentially the numbers of green iguanas that we have on Grand Cayman. Billions, you think? Or
No. When we started the cull, our best estimate was about 1.3 million.
Right.
When I say our best estimate is, when you do these population surveys, you don't get a number. You get a range within which you're 95% certain the real number lies. Okay. And then a most probable value, which is sitting in the middle of that, which is about 1.3. So it could be 1.6, it could be maybe even just 1.1. But it's in that kind of definitely over the million mark, somewhere around 1.3 million mark. So we've now taken out 400,000, so it should be getting below the 1 million mark now. That's still a lot of iguanas to go.
Yeah.
And what we really need to be sure is this summer, we keep the pressure up so that this population that's left doesn't get to reproduce at the potential that it could.
Okay. For those who don't know, that green iguana, when she lays, can lay as many as how many eggs?
Well, it wouldn't be unusual to get 60.
60.
Right. And more than that sometimes, less than that if it's a smaller animal. But that's a 40 or 50 or 60 eggs would be pretty normal.
And the survival rate of that lay is fairly high, we gather?
Yeah, we haven't actually measured it in Cayman specifically, but if other iguanas to go by, we'd expect a pretty high hatch rate.
Right.
At least half of them would come off. Maybe half the nests might fail, but
still a significant number. And then as we get ready to go to the call, not long after, there's maturity that they can start laying again.
And it can become very quickly. We've seen 2-year-old iguanas developing eggs, and that's fast. That's fast,
yeah. These are things that you shared with us in the past, and I just wanted to remind Mr. Fred Burton, sir, we do have a call. Let's see if not, we'll take 2 strings and tie it at the end of a can and see if that works. Not just kidding, Dean. Not just kidding. Let's try it. Good afternoon and welcome. You're on Talk Today.
Hello, good afternoon.
Hi, good afternoon. How are you?
I'm okay, thank you. I'd like to ask a question about the iguana culling.
Yes, and I must say I hear you very clearly. I'm hoping that you can do the same with us.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
And thanks to the engineer.
When the colors come out, do they have any kind of liability insurance, or what happens in case of damage? I mean, sometimes they have those air rifles or whatever they call them. I mean, if who knows, it could hit a car or any kind of damage. Is there any coverage required? Thank you. I'll hang up now.
Okay. Thank you for sharing that, Mr. Burton.
Yeah, I mean, basically, the answer is no, not really. A lot of these people are individuals, and the kind of insurance cover that we're talking about would be it would cost them more than they could recoup in selling iguanas. The liability situation is not something we've ignored. The cull company has its own liability insurance, the cull manager, and ultimately the Cayman Islands government has insurance, of course. But these cullers with air rifles are supposed to be operating and are legally required to be operating under the terms of their licenses. And they are, liable to lose those licenses if they use those air rifles irresponsibly. I think it's fair to say that most of our air rifle operators are very responsible, mature people, and the police take care about who they issue licenses to.
Right.
That's not to say there aren't a few wild cards out there, but I hope, on the whole, the fact that we've got this far without serious incident is an indication of the quality of the people we've got.
For the colours generally, and specifically for those with air rifles and the like, are they identifiable? Are they to wear particular uniforms, vests, to make them, or a, what do you call it?
So we require the colours with air rifles to wear safety vests, orange vests, right, that distinguish and put cones out if they're by the side of the road, so that it's evident that they are using an air rifle in a public place and why. People who are culling with nooses and snares and things are not required to do that, but everybody who's culling is required to get permission if they want to go onto somebody's private property.
Are there restrictions per the license or per the agreement as a colour in terms of hours of operation, or can they be operating once they own property with permission 24/7? Is it like liquor licenses where you can be open and closed within these hours? Are there any sort of opening and closing requirements?
There's no opening and closing requirements. There is purely the permission. So basically, if somebody knocks on your door and says, "Can I cull your iguanas?" whatever you say to them, they need to pay attention to. If you say you can't come here after 10 o'clock at night, then they can't come there after 10 o'clock at night. They have to respect your property rights and your right to tell them when they can and can't come.
Well, Mr. Burton, we have our 2 p.m. headline news. You're more than welcome if you have other things to do that you want to get to, but if you wish to stay with us and share a little more, you tell me now. I can come back for a few minutes after the break.
Well, I think I'm done.
You think you're done?
Unless there's anything else you really want me to cover?
No, sir.
All right.
We're grateful to you and the team for what you're doing, and provide the avenue in person or otherwise to share with the public as you wish.
Well, thank you, Sterling.
All right. Yeah. Let's pause and take a break. Call Susan during the break. I bet she can tell you something. Stay tuned. We'll talk to you.
Satisfaction is guaranteed 24 hours a day, whether it's music or information.
Grand Cayman to Cayman Brac to Little Cayman. We've got you covered.
You ever hear a thing like that?
Radio Cayman in the Cayman Islands.
Radio Cayman. Radio Cayman's newsroom. These are the biggest stories right now.
Just before 5:40 p.m. on Tuesday, officers were on patrol in the area of Cumber Avenue, Bodden Town, when they had cause to stop and speak with a man who was behaving suspiciously in the area. Police say the man was subsequently searched by the officers, and packets of what is believed to be ganja was found on him. Prior to being searched, the man was seen discarding items into a garbage bin, and when the bin was searched, lottery number papers were located. A 48-year-old man of Bodden Town was arrested on suspicion of drugs and gambling-related offenses and was taken into custody. A second man, age 42 of Bodden Town, was also in the area, and police say he was also searched and found to be in possession of an illegal lottery ticket. The 42-year-old man was granted bail pending further investigation, while the 48-year-old man remains in custody pending further inquiries. The matter is under investigation by the police. In news elsewhere, a judge has agreed to postpone the start of ex-Trump lawyer Michael Cohen's prison sentence by 2 months to May 6th. New York Judge William Pauley approved the delay Wednesday after Cohen's lawyers said he needed more time to recover from shoulder surgery and prepare for congressional testimony. They noted prosecutors did not object. Survivors of clergy sexual abuse met with organizers of a Vatican Prevention Summit Wednesday and demanded transparency, zero tolerance for abuse, and for religious superiors to be held accountable when they protect priests who rape and molest children. The survivors met for more than 2 hours with the Vatican's lead sex abuse investigator and other members of the organizing committee for the 4-day summit starting Thursday. Those are your latest updates here on Radio Cayman. I'm Shanta Gallego.
Radio Cayman, the voice of the Cayman Islands. What's happening in your community? News and information, music and more. You can find us. www.radiocayman.gov.ky. Like us on Facebook and follow us on Twitter. Radio Cayman is your choice, your voice for today's biggest news. Radio Cayman.
At
have Flow, we know that 4 are better than 1. Introducing Flow Quad Play. Packed with the fastest, most reliable broadband, the power and control of Flow Evo TV, Cayman's best mobile experience, and tons of home phone minutes, all in one convenient package from only $199 a month. With 4 plans to choose from, you're sure to find one that fits your needs. It's value, ease, and convenience all on one bill with Cayman's #1 network. Find out why 4 are better than 1 with Flow Quad Play at discoverflow.ky. Terms and conditions apply.
Talk today.
But I do have some questions.
Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waging to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon and welcome back. It is open line here on Talk Today. 949-8037. 949-8037. Or a toll-free call at 1-800-534-8255. And thanks very much to our engineer and Miss Susan for the tireless efforts and getting the new work all up and ready. We get in there, man. A new board, a new year, a new time, new phone system. I guess all that's left now is a new host, right, Miss Susan? What do you think? She said, oh no, you should see her smile. Hopefully that's a smile. No, just kidding. Hey, want to know if it's working? Want to know if I can hear you clearly? Give us a call, give us a shout, share your thoughts with us. 949-8037 or 1-800-534-8255 and let us know. Now, we just had a chance to speak to Mr. Fred Burton as he shared. There is sort of, I shouldn't say open season necessarily on iguanas, but open registration. So unlike the past when they said, okay, we're going to have registration for the next ensuing period, what he shared is that you just go down and present yourself with the requisite, identification and paperwork. If you're permanent resident, has a right to work, then you're eligible. If you're proof of Caymanian, and there are those, as he indicated, who are making, good bank, making good money doing this. They're working hard. We gather that from what people have shared, still a fair bit of iguanas out there. Perhaps a little bit more challenging to get. That low-hanging fruit isn't as easy to pick anymore. So we may have to go a little bit further. But hey, let's go to our phones. Good afternoon. You're on Talk Today.
Good afternoon, Sterling.
And to you, ma'am. How are you today?
Oh, just checking if your lines out, boys. Not too easy to get through.
Mm-hmm.
But I know they're trying to do their best. I was trying to speak to your first guest you had on earlier.
Uh-huh.
And your second guest, but I still talk about it. So I've got two things I want to talk about. We were talking about the colors of the iguanas. They came in here as a pet, they claim, but they became a nuisance to the island, right?
Mm-hmm.
And they're spending all kind of money to try to catch these iguanas. And so far, it's not looking bad at all. But Sterling, you had someone on your show just a couple of weeks ago talking about a drone or something of seeing these iguanas at nighttime. Didn't you have someone on your station some weeks ago talking about that?
I must confess that I'm not hearing you as clearly as I heard some of the other callers. But you're saying that with the iguanas at nighttime, what was that?
The gentleman was saying on the radio station a couple of weeks ago that they're looking into getting drones.
Drones, yeah. He had actually shared that they were using, what's that? I think the radar or infrared, I believe was what he said, to sort of track them.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So I was just wondering, if that is something extra the government has to purchase to go out here to try to get these iguanas under control. And if it's so, Sterling, really and truly, that is ridiculous. You hear me?
No, ma'am. I missed most of what you shared. I do apologize for that. Yeah, it is.
What do you want me to do?
Sorry? Okay. No, what I did hear last was the use of the drones and the like, and then I did not hear anything else after that. Were you able to?
Can you hear me now?
Actually, right now you're much clearer.
Okay. And I was saying that if we have to use these drones or whatever they may call it, then what was the word you used earlier? Some sort of light. I want to know if that would cost our government extra money to go and look into these iguanas with this certain machine.
If I can ask, and this is just a general question, I understand that there are potential far-reaching implications, but down the road, whether it's a year or 10 years from now, and let's say we still have an issue with respect to the green iguana being as invasive as it is, what do you think we can do to, one, keep it under control, perhaps even to significantly reduce or even eradicate what I think some have seen as a pest? Now, potential food source and other revenue measures for others, but is it something that we expect the government, whether through the environmental fund or whether through some other measure, to pay for the eradication, or is there another option?
I don't think that should be an expense on anyone in the future on these iguanas. I would like to know if government is putting a restriction on whoever's bringing them in here sometime on these boats from Honduras and wherever else. So if we get some cleanup now and these guys go and bring them back in here just for badness and so forth, are we looking into the far side of, are they going to smuggle them back in on this island? If there's any restriction that they're stating that they're not allowed to bring them back in here. So, you know what I mean?
Exactly. So greater enforcement that ensure that whether it's other contraband, that we're not importing iguanas at all, and we're certainly not smuggling. But then what about, we see that the breeding season is coming up. Maybe there'll be some benefit, whether this season or next, to more heavily incentivize the colors to go out and make a greater concerted effort during the breeding season. If you can get 30 to 60 iguanas with the coloring of one, that would be beneficial.
Yes, but I doesn't want to cost our government anything. That's what I do want, because it has left of my people and me. You understand? Put that kind of money on iguanas. But Sterling, my next point that I want to talk to you about, you had was it Mr. McTaggart on there earlier?
Yes, ma'am.
Talking about the cost of living and things, and is looking good in the Cayman Islands financially, I think. Am I wording it wrong?
Well, no, the economic numbers indicate that there's a positive trend. Employment is coming down, inflation is coming down, the economic growth is increasing, so things are looking good according to the latest numbers.
Well, no disrespect to them, but I just want to say that I don't know where that's at, because Sterling, they said that they gave their, what's that program again? They must have got like an extra $100 again this year on their they get like $750 per month. So I mean a category.
Right.
And then he also said that we got what is $500 shopping coming from Miami, wherever we may go shopping overseas. And what was the next one that he said? Oh my goodness. But anyhow, I just want to say, Sterling, it's not too many people traveling today to enhance that $500. It's all good and well, but I can guarantee you, we don't have as much our local traveling like they was traveling before because of the cost of living. And that $750 that the majority of these people are getting, Sterling, when you pay your light bill and water bill, let me tell you something, you hardly have anything left. And when you go to the grocery store, it's even worse, because then every week our items are going up a 5 cents or 10 cents, and all those 5 cents and 10 cents adds up at the end of your register and ring up. You understand? So, Sterling, $750 a month in Cayman cannot feed one person. And Sterling, when I get my salary and I pay my bills, I have no money left to buy any food. So thank God that I got this tax so that I can jump in to go and get some money to feed me and do the rest of the things that I need to do and to maintain my van. You understand? So people are out here hurting, regardless of what statistic they may have in that glass house in regards to the economy towards the people out here. I think they need to go door to door and open some of these people cabinet doors and refrigerator. For example, mine, you know what's in my refrigerator? About 6 apples and a dozen bottles of water. And I got paid yesterday. And I don't have the money to run to the grocery store and buy me no $200 worth of groceries.
But this is the thing, we have to, as you so correctly sharing, that it may be that, for argument's sake, the cost of the electricity or even the cost of the water, we tend, for most of us, to buy water now. No longer are we using cisterns and wells to the same extent. But it may not just be those things. It may be the cost of other items that we consume more regularly that have increased. And those increases are the ones that are affecting us more directly and causing us to have less money available to buy other things that we need, or even to save if we want to put aside something for that rainy day.
Erlen, I was, yesterday I was moving up and down. And I came to the grocery store to get something to eat. And we got people on the assessment that I know for a fact that ain't working. And they was in a grocery store yesterday with the wholesale cart running over, and then it comes to the grocery store to get the other loose items. And certain, I know it has to be over $200 or $300 worth of groceries that they're walking home with at the end of their gaining from need assessment or social service. What I'm trying to say is these homes need to be evaluated every 3 months to 6 months to see who really is in need. You understand, sir? Because we got a lot of people out here that deserve better help than they're getting, and they got people who can still go and hold a job. And if you don't evaluate these people 3 to 6 months, they will never come out of the system. They will grow old, and they will die in the system, and their children and their grandchildren are going to come behind because that's all they know. Go to the system, they're going to pay your light bill, they're going to pay your water bill, and they're going to give you food. Sterling, you cannot budget your water bill, and you can't budget your light bill.
That is something that I think I hear in a lot of people express concern, that they find that even if they're in their minds are conscious they're trying to conserve, they're expecting, for instance, as you said, the electric bill or the water bill to be less this month because they've made these efforts, only to find that it's higher. Now, sometimes it's higher because there are more days in the billing period. Sometimes it's higher because, well, they can't understand why. But the question, though, what you were sharing, remember a term back in probably the mid-90s, perhaps in the US, when they were talking about trying to, instead of using welfare as a term, they would use workfare. Maybe more than just political rhetoric. The question, though, to ask of you, are we also looking at those households, those Caymanian households, where there may be one parent or both parents working, they're still feeling the financial punch, still find it difficult to make ends meet. They're working, but at the end of the day, there isn't sufficient income. Are we able to assist them in a way to earn more, to have less expenses, to be able to live a little bit more respectful and a little bit more respectable lives?
And you know what, Sterling? I'm glad to say that, because our children is catching the heat from the parents who cannot support them the way they would like to support their children. So we do need to look into something like that, which I think would be very, very beneficial to those who has a job that is trying so hard. Sterling, I see a truck at a bank for what is $49,000. I remember when my house mortgage was that amount. And you can imagine they can give you $49,000 to go buy a truck, but they can't give the average person a loan at the bank to get a little 2x2 house to live in Cayman, that they have nowhere else to go but Cayman, that they so-called home. Sterling, let me tell you something. I don't know what's going to happen here in Cayman, but if we don't wake up and start looking up for our young generation, Sterling, we're not going to have no young generation. I saw the guys from the Northwest in the highway a couple of days ago, Sterling. Sterling, they are some fine-looking young men. To see that they're locked down, Sterling, and they are looking at every car crossing. I guess they're looking to see the same of what they recognize. Sterling, and the guys are working, and they are fine young men. Will they ever get back in society and become a better person? I would love to live to see that. But our men that's in Northwood, that is so young, we need to get them back out here in reality and take care of their children or help with their parents or what the case may be, or put them in school or what the case may be.
Yes. Well, when we come back from the break, I'm actually going to share a thought with someone related in relation to this whole issue of, building a new prison versus maybe trying to figure out how we can rehab and reduce that population. But thank you for sharing with us, Mom.
Thank you.
Thank you very much indeed. And enjoy it out there. Be safe. And we'll talk to you again whenever you wish. All right. I believe we've got the final break to take. I'm hoping that I see chocolate out there. Will I see chocolate? Let's find out. Stay tuned for Talk Today.
I'm Reverend John D. Jefferson on behalf of the Wesleyan Holiness Church of West Bay, Georgetown, and Northside. We are proclaiming the good news of salvation by lifting up the banner of our Lord and Savior Jesus Christ.
Save time, don't stand in line. You can apply for or renew your trade and business license online 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Just visit dci.gov.ky and click on the Trade and Business Online application link. Now, you don't need to stand in line, take time out of your busy schedule or try to find parking. You can apply for your trade and business license online. Visit dci.gov.ky today and save time for running your business.
Are you looking to eliminate wrinkles and fine lines? Beyond Basics is offering Botox units at $9.95 each, a savings of $6 per unit. Get kissable lips, plump up cheeks, and reduce smile lines by saving $275 on dermal fillers. This February, love your skin with these specials and more at Beyond Basics. Call 916-SKIN to book your appointment today.
Get your car washed with Diamond Auto Care. $20 car wash special. $30 for SUVs, interior and exterior. Call 928-7336. Diamond Auto Care will leave your car with a sparkle and shine. Only $20. Call 928-7336.
Hello, I am Noel March, a small business owner in Georgetown for over 20 years. Small businesses depend on government to develop a quality infrastructure and environment that encourages entrepreneurs to create and grow local businesses, resulting in the creation of jobs and prosperity for Caymanians. Small businesses help drive our economy. Just as we have supported building the new airport, we must support the building of the new cargo and cruise port. It will give our tourism industry the opportunity to grow and Caymanian entrepreneurs the chance to shine. Support the port. Support our tourism.
Talk today.
But I do have some questions.
Talk today.
Cayman Islands' foremost listeners' participation program.
Talk today.
Because there are more questions than answers.
What the public is saying.
Waiting to take your calls right now. Sterling Dwayne Ebanks.
Hey, good afternoon. Welcome back to Talk Today. Thanks again for sharing with us. If you hear a little bit of a change and it's not as clear as you want, let us know. We'll fix it. I'm really grateful to the team here, in particular engineer, for tireless just making the needed adjustments as we get things all squared away, as we move it forward to make it even better for you. There'll be some growing pains and challenges, but we'll get it. We'll get it. 949-8037 or 1-800-534-8255. The last caller referenced something that we were going to maybe wait until later in the week, perhaps even as early as tomorrow to share with you, but why not do it now? 949-8037, 1-800-534-8255. If you want to WhatsApp, 925-3261 is our WhatsApp number if you want to share your thoughts with us. But the caller just prior to the break was sharing that, seeing these young men, as she said, fine young men, now incarcerated, but thankfully with an opportunity, hopefully, a step in the right direction as the country recognizes that we need to rehabilitate and reintegrate and to ensure that our people, even when there are transgressions and missteps and they end up on the other side of the judicial system, that all is not lost, that as a society we welcome them. Perhaps the government's initiative to lead by example has to be commended. Now, a couple of individuals were sharing with me recently. I was waiting for more information, but they were, of the view, according to them, that yes, a new prison would be perhaps a good option. Perhaps a prison that is more modern and better equipped. Recently, though, they said this is a small group of individuals who are been looking at some of these issues that our society being forced to face one member of the group suggested that for whatever reason we've ignored these issues, deliberately or otherwise. The person relayed the comment that if we now go and spend money in a prison, whether it's 10 million or whether it's 100 million, whatever those tens of millions, and whether they're going to be cost overruns or going to be heavily managed, is that money best spent? The thought was, well, could we look at not increasing the size of the prison in order to accommodate more prisoners? Could we actually do the opposite? Could we find ways, even if we spend the money, to reduce the recidivism rate so that, time that the prisoners in and out the door? Well, what can we do in our rehabilitation process to reintegrate the prisoner? What can we do not by, legalizing otherwise criminal behavior, not by not enforcing our laws, or not by, refusing to impose, sentences of incarceration where warranted, but are there things that we can do? Now, one of these individuals indicated that, her training and like would probably lend some level of expertise in venturing an opinion, but just thinking out loud, as I would put it, general discussion, she was sharing that if we look at our population and we come up with a particular number, and then we say, well, as a percentage of the wider population, it equates to so many per capita, that may sound to be a high number, it may sound to be a relative small number. But when we ignore that and look specifically at the individuals that are being incarcerated, at the families that are being affected, and then if we were, in our mind, to drill down and say, well, what are people being imprisoned for? Certainly, criminal behavior should not be condoned. Certainly, when measures of incarceration are warranted, then by all means they should be enforced. Now, if you give someone 10 years for this offense and another person comes along and does something very similar, well, perhaps that person expected to get 10 years as well, not 1 and not 100. But likewise, will not just alternative sentencing options as exists, but would we be better served, not just because of the significant financial cost of building and maintaining the prison, but housing the prisoners? Some estimates indicate that we're probably upwards of 70,000 per prisoner. Now, we don't, I believe, as a society, want to toss our prisoners in and forget about them and treat them with no respect, no regard for their health and welfare. But likewise, could that money be better spent on making sure that the prisoners have a sense that they have to, as they say, pay for their crimes, but they also have an opportunity now to become integrated into society and become, if we use the term, functioning members of our society. Likewise, are we doing anything to deter that behavior? If it's a case that the person is in prison because the person broke into someone's home or business and committed a crime, well, we don't want that to be commonplace. What if it's the people are on our roads and they're driving at excessive high rates of speed? How do we deter that behavior and punish the offenders? What if it's driving without license or insurance as is required by our law? What if it's driving under the influence of something? What if it's significantly more serious, where the people have caused great harm and perhaps taken the lives of others? We certainly want a society that is free from such criminal behavior. Now, her view was that if we look at our prison and we look at the expenditures to date and the continuing ongoing expenditures to build and maintain a prison, but equally to house the prisoner, surely there must be not just a more humane way, but a more economic, efficient, and socially acceptable way to deal, with the notion of having to incarcerate and rehabilitate the offenders in our society. I appreciate what they were sharing, in particular her views. I leave it to you to decide whether this is something that we want to look more close to. We know that there's much debate sometimes from different quarters as a result of what they believe is the appropriate response. Some would probably be salivating at the idea that, wow, another government project that involves construction, lots of money to be made. Hey, we're not going to want to disparage people by saying that they can't and shouldn't be making money if the government's going to be spending it. But then there are those who are saying, well, there's a greater cost at play, and that life and value and worth of that individual perhaps could be better served and respected and appreciated, and a contribution made if the person is functioning beyond the four fences of a prison, and perhaps more in a society. Now, our safety, security, and stability certainly must be paramount. Now, tomorrow is another day, and we invite you to be a part of us. I know there are a couple of things ongoing. We'll see whether we'll be a part of that. But in any event, hopefully it's a day that we are a part of, and not only can give thanks and rejoice in it, but equally be very grateful that we have an opportunity to make an indelible contribution to our society. Not only look positively, but productively. Not stick our heads in the proverbial sand and pretend that there are no problems, but not always just gripe and cuss and complain. Let's find solutions that can actually be meaningful. Hey, listen, a good smile, sometimes can open doors, but sometimes, you got to push with both shoulders against the door because it just needs a little extra prying. Hey, just do what needs to be done in order to make our society better. Hold each other accountable, whether you're, elected or appointed to a position, or whether you're just quietly doing your thing on your own. Let it be the best thing you do. Until tomorrow, be blessed.
Of the Cayman Islands, Radio Cayman.
We love our listeners. Radio Cayman in the Cayman Islands.